Going back the debunk route, I'm looking at another video by low-hanging fruit, stupid shit said by morons on the internet. And one of the best targets for that, one of the most prolific purveyors of horsepucky, is of course the group that has the nerve to call itself a university.
Why are you right? Yes, you, conservative person. Can you answer that question? I think it's so important that I wrote a book about it. How to be right. The art of being persuasively correct. Because if you can't be persuasive about why you are right, then we, the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, are lost.
That's right, everyone. Prager University, the bastion of stupid fucktard videos. This video hosted by Fox News fucktard Greg Gutfeld. And I gotta tell you something, as a lover of irony and a lover of making fun of stupid shit morons say, this video is the cream of the crop. I've seen it over a year ago, and ever since then, when it came around to thinking about stupid shit that I wanted to make fun of, it kept on circling back to this guy, to this video. You'll soon see why. But first, let him try and explain what conservatism is, before I explain to you why he's completely and utterly, laughably fucking wrong.
So here's the simple answer to why you are right. It is a more practical, generous, and compassionate way to live. Let me explain. There have been a bunch of academic studies on how those on the left and right approach problems. They pretty much all come to the same conclusion. The right tends to be risk-averse, more concerned about external threats, like tyranny and terror. Conservatives, get this, tend to be conservative. They're less likely to play with fire in just about every sense. Financially, artistically, sexually. They're cautious about changing traditions, sometimes to a fault, which is why they cling to that crazy constitution they like so much, and to their guns and their religion.
Now, this is the kind of thing I hear that makes my inner autistic screech owl want to come out and play. I mean, it is fucking capital stupid for me, because he defines conservatism as being conservative, as being safe, secure, maintaining the status quo, keeping things as they are, not trying anything new, while liberalism is scary and experimental. They try new and different things, and that could be dangerous. They play with fire and you might get burned. And then he goes on to talk about conservative ideas like guns and religion and, of course, the Constitution, none of which would exist without someone, somewhere, being bold and experimenting. At some point in human history, there was no gunpowder. Someone had to mix a little of this, mix a little of that, put it together, add a flame, boom. Holy shit. If we do something with this, add these chemicals to it, it creates pretty colors. We can turn that into fireworks. If we do this over here, we can turn it into a weapon. Over time, people had to experiment. People had to literally play with fire to figure out how the fuck gunpowder worked and how they could use it towards beneficial effects, like the sacred gun that you seem to love so goddamn much. And you can guarantee at some point throughout history, people who were religious fucktards would say, no, these are the product of demons, these are the product of devils, these are the product of whatever your fucking bullshit religious ideal demon bad guy was. What we should do in our society to be conservative, to play it safe, is to stick with our old metal weapons and, swords and bows and arrows and shit like that. Guns exist, as they do today, because of bold experimentation. Now, Greg defines himself as being non-religious, so I'll take him at his word. I have no reason to believe him otherwise. But the majority of the people who listen to him, who watch him on Fox News, watch his Prager video, bought his book, probably Christian conservatives. Christianity is a religion founded by a guy who was literally executed for pissing off the local authorities. He was not a kind of guy who took it safe. He pissed off the political and religious powers in his era until they decided it would be a good idea, a preferable idea, to nail him to a big fucking stick of wood and let him die. He was not a societal norm kind of person. He wasn't just going to maintain tradition. He wanted to create an entirely new covenant of God. If you believe in covenants with God, changing that seems to be like the biggest, most society altering, world changing thing a person can do. If maintaining the status quo and playing it safe is the definition of conservative, Jesus was the most liberal motherfucker in the history of this goddamn planet. Now, I'm guessing pretty much everybody in your audience is familiar with the expression lost in translation. You know, the idea that you cannot take a long message from one language to another without losing something, losing the feel, losing meanings. Things get altered, things get changed. It's unavoidable if your message is long enough. That includes the Bible, which is why for the first 1500 years or so of Christianity, it was considered a pretty high-level heresy to translate the Bible out of their original languages. You know, translating the Bible to English, German, Spanish, French, whatever the fuck, was considered a massive heresy. But eventually they did it. Someone, or some people, not willing to just maintain the status quo and maintain tradition, or as you would call them based upon your fucking definition here, liberal, was willing to take that risk, take the chance of the massive societal implications that came with greater access to the Bible throughout Europe and the world. It did actually have some pretty strong reverberations, many strong, some positive, some negative. We could go back and forth forever on that. But there's no denying that a lot of your audience who like to wave around their King James Bible would not have it if it weren't for somebody willing to take risks and chances, someone willing to avoid the status quo, or is, based upon your definition, a liberal. Now let's step forward to the American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence. I know it may surprise some of Greg Gutfeld's followers, his listeners, but American independence was not the result of colonists sitting around in their log cabins trying to maintain tradition and the status quo. They were kind of taking a risk based upon your definition of conservative, playing it safe. These people, again, were most definitely not conservative. They were fucking hardcore liberals. Because these guys, I mean, you used the idea of playing with fire before. British military, strongest in the world at the time. It's basically, let's find the biggest bonfire in the world we can find and poke it with a stick. Let's hope things work out for the best. It turns out they did. But this is, again, and the people who opposed the American Revolution the most, you know, because it wasn't anywhere near unanimous at the time in the colonies, the people who opposed the idea the most, business conservatives, you know, people who had moneyed interest all throughout the empire, thought it might get fucked with if they joined in the revolution. And number two, religious conservatives who believed in divine right, who believed that if God did not want the king to be king, God would not have let him become king in the first place. So it was conservatives who opposed the American Revolution, and based upon your definition at least, liberals who pushed it forward. But once again, it doesn't really stop there, because the American colonists did not go from British monarchy to the Constitution. There was a layover period in between, which the country was ruled over by the Articles of Confederation. Now, if the traditionalists and the small government people had their way, if the status quo was to be maintained, we would have maintained and kept the Articles of Confederation. They lost. So once again, the Constitution was written by people making a change, messing with the status quo, willing to take a risk. So once again, the Constitution is the result of second-generation motherfuckers willing to take a chance, by your definition, liberal.
We conservatives also focus on what we can fix and accept what we cannot. which is one of the many reasons we're not obsessed over global warming. With radical Islam, we know what the threat is, and that it's a lot worse than a few missing polar bears. I know that makes me sound mean. Sorry, polar bears.
And here, the condescending tone of voice I'm picking up almost makes me feel kind of sad for Greg, because I think he feels as if he's making a point. He isn't. He's talking about terrorism and religious extremism, two things that, as far as I can tell, have existed throughout all of recorded human history and are a natural but unfortunate aspect of the human condition. He thinks we can fight against that, we can change it. However, Muslim extremism goes away. Who's to say Buddhist extremism or Sikh extremism won't fill the void through some sort of political machinations? I mean, we've had plenty of Christian terrorists throughout history. In fact, we've had Christian terrorists fighting against Christian terrorists, Catholics against Protestant or whoever the fuck. The idea that Muslim extremism is like the end-all, be-all, we can change this and alter human through it, is just fucking not true. However, what he doesn't think he can change is how much carbon comes out of our tailpipes or where the electricity we use in our houses comes from. This is another place where I think he gets it completely fucking ass backwards. He's taking a look at something that we can't change and thinking we can, and taking a look at something that we can affect and thinking we can't. And honestly, I would feel a little remiss if I didn't bring up the stupid fucking line he did with the couple of fucking missing polar bear situation. As if that was the extent of global warming and the worries and concerns about it. The fact that the ocean levels, water molecules tend to expand as they warm, which in a body of water the size of the ocean actually can make a significant difference. The fact that we have, geology and paleontology and archaeology, all these sciences about explaining the past and making predictions about the future. And historically speaking, when worldwide temperatures went up, the deserts of the American Southwest tended to expand towards and into what we call the Great Plains, which is a critical source of food for our country in the world. To me, that doesn't seem like a good idea. To me, that seems like something worth at least trying to avoid if possible. Now, maybe some of you who watch this have read about the Dust Bowl and, the Oklahoma dust storms and all that shit. Maybe you read about it and said, well, that seems like a lot of fun. I'd like to try that. If that's for you, then yes, global warming is something you should promote and not worry too much about. If you read about that and think, well, that seems like a horrible thing that should be avoided and we should actually try and work to prevent it, then you might want to consider at least looking into trying to minimize the effects of global warming. Just saying.
Liberals, the research tells us, are generally more outgoing, more likely to try new stuff. They're open to new ideas, though not school choice or flat taxes or a market-based healthcare reform.
Wait. I didn't know Greg supports Obamacare. Because that's what Obamacare is. It's market-based healthcare reform. It is a government mandate that every citizen who can enter the marketplace is required to do so. The reason why Donald Trump is having such a hard time coming up with his repeal and replace plan is because it's virtually impossible to come up with a more right-wing, more market-based healthcare reform solution that has any chance whatsoever of working. As far as flat taxes go, they're not a new option. They're the option, it's the option that sucked before we tried the progressive tax system, and it fucking sucked. As far as school choice goes, great, let's do school choice. Under the requirement that we actually regulate what a school is. So that way we don't have religious indoctrination centers bullshitting everyone and calling themselves schools. If you're willing to do that, I'm guessing a lot more liberals would be on board with school choice.
And are less likely to feel threatened by unfamiliar things. This is why, in general, they seem to have more fun. They're more likely to try drugs, for example, which is fine as long as they don't end up throwing up in my toaster. In short, liberals are pretty liberal. They feel free to take risks that the risk-averse usually end up paying for over and over. Which explains the necessity for conservatism. We are the cleanup crew.
They are also risks that the risk-adverse benefit from over and over and over again. I mentioned earlier, the Bible, the Constitution, and guns, all things that at one time were dangerous, scary new ideas that only one of those crazy liberals would do, playing with fire over and over again. And now they're conservative staples. That's because you guys aren't the cleanup crew, you're the leech. You're the ones who take an idea that was once dangerous, scary, could shake the very foundation of society to its core, and then once it becomes popular and everyone decides it's a good idea, you claim it was always your thing.
Liberals may seem to have more fun, and many do, but according to polls, they aren't as happy as conservatives. And with all the fun they're having, I've never quite figured out why the angriest people I've encountered in my life have been liberals. Maybe it's because short-term fun doesn't translate into long-term happiness. Marriage, families, and religion do that, and those are the things conservatives most value.
Maybe conservatives are simply more happy because ignorance is bliss, and because a lot more of them have an imaginary friend that constantly tells them how great they are. Maybe liberals are more pissed because they have to deal with that shit. Maybe they're more pissed because their once revolutionary, brilliant ideas that were dangerous and scary and fought against by conservatives are now held by conservatives and held up as a standard as why we should not try new ideas that might be even more effective.
Liberals tend to live for now, conservatives for later. A risk-averse conservative is more likely to save money. He is more likely to protect his investments. He is more likely to protect property and advocate for rule of law and preservation of individual protections. And he offers no excuses for looting. Instead, he empathizes with the Asian, Arab, and Black small businessman whose convenience store, laundry, or restaurant goes up in flames during the riot that liberals reflexively endorse as an understandable response to injustice. Of course, conservatives aren't risk-averse in everything, but they take risks with their own lives, not with the society.
When a conservative business person is fighting against regulations that prevent him from poisoning an entire town's drinking water, or rendering an entire village's air dangerous to breathe, or making risky securities investments that could put the entire world's economy in jeopardy, is he just risking his own health and his own welfare? Fuck no. In fact, stock markets is a pretty right-wing thing, generally speaking. The entire concept is trying to convince other people to invest in your shit. The entire idea of the stock market is playing with other people's fucking money. The idea that conservatives are just about looking after their own and not fucking with other people's shit is goddamn ridiculous.
Conservatives risk all to build businesses. That risk, however, is rooted in a fact-based belief, not faith, in the free market. If people want the product or service you're supplying at the price you're asking, you will succeed and the risk will pay off. Over time, it's conservative risk-taking that creates a civilization by building families, businesses, and nations, all of which creates more wealth that can then be used to help those in need. You need money to make money, but you also need money to give money. Conservatism makes what liberalism takes.
Huh? Oh, sorry, I got a little distracted. You're kind of fucking boring. There's this really good article here I was reading in The Nation about how a lot of small business owners are surprisingly liberal and progressive. Apparently, they're aware of the fact that in order for their businesses to succeed, they need good, solid infrastructure for their customers to get to their business and money to spend there, and how a lot of the idea that small business owners are conservative is just basically the result of the Small Business Administration being hijacked by the right wing when Republicans were in office. It's almost as if some of these people also believe cleaner air, cleaner water means their customers get sick less often, spend less money at the doctor's offices, at clinics and hospitals, which means that they can spend more money at their stores. It's almost as if they think that cleaner air means that their businesses will get dirty less often and won't have to be cleaned quite as much. It's almost as if they think that there's a whole list of infrastructure programs and abilities that help them to make a successful, functional business that's profitable. It's almost as if they think that there's a community involved in community businesses. Hey, in fact, I can put a link down below if you'd like to take a look at it. It might be worth reading. It might be better than listening to fucking Greg Gutfeld go on about bullshit. Anyways, you were saying?
So, for example, for liberals to get their minimum wage hike, first we need conservatives to build businesses, to think like businessmen, to sacrifice their own salaries in order to pay others, to sleep on floors, if necessary, in order to break even. Then, when they make a profit and things are going great, when the calm sets in, liberalism can appear and say, how dare you not pay these people a living wage? Once the tables are full of diners and bills are being paid, and you're thinking about opening a second joint, liberalism arrives to demand its cut. Think of it as a protection racket, sort of like the Gambino family, but without loyalty, job prospects, and tracksuits.
I love the fact that in your world, people who work for a living being able to earn one is somehow a crazy fucking concept. As far as I'm concerned, and I hate to be insensitive, I guess it's my turn to be mean now. If your business takes 40 hours of someone's life every fucking week and they cannot afford to put a roof over their head, food in their mouth, clothing on their backs, your business should not fucking exist more than likely. If you have full-time employees who cannot support themselves, your business is automatically a failure as far as I'm concerned.
In short, conservatism doesn't compete with liberalism, it sustains it. Without conservatism, there is no liberalism.
It doesn't sustain liberalism so much as it sustains the ideas liberals came up with decades or centuries before you were even born.
And so when a liberal asks you, why are you a conservative? Simply say, so that you can be a liberal.
Or you could say that you're a myopic dipshit with no original ideas and maintain your political relevancy strictly by leeching off of the ideas of previous generations of liberals. Be more honest, at least. All right, everyone, I think that's going to wrap it up there. Fucking finally. Please share this video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that great shit that helps me out and makes my time seem worthwhile, at least to some small degree. Other than that, though, we'll cut it and have a nice day situation.